Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's morning briefing.
Tensions between Hamas and Israel have been ramping up both on the Gaza and West Bank fronts. In Gaza, the terror group has launched yet another rocket at Israeli territory, and meanwhile in the West Bank, the army has just arrested one of Hamas's top leaders and founding members. This is all in the wake of Palestinian rage that boiled over less than a week ago, when President Donald Trump officially recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital and pledged to move the United States Embassy accordingly. Hamas has been rallying for a third intifada wave of terror against Israel ever since, and terror attacks have spiked nearly every day as a result. To calm the violence, the army has just arrested one of Hamas's leading figures in the cry for terror, Sheikh Hassan Youssef, who is also one of Hamas's founding members. 31 other Palestinians have also been arrested for suspicion of inciting terror. These arrests come shortly after Hamas fired yet another rocket from Gaza Strip at Israel. Rockets were fired earlier this week as well, one of which actually hit an empty Israeli kindergarten. But fortunately, this latest one fell short and exploded inside Gaza. Israeli jets have retaliated as usual by bombing Hamas outposts in the Strip, but clearly this escalation is just getting started. The world remains fiercely divided over President Trump's now infamous announcement to move the United States Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. But for those predicting an immediate overnight change, the Secretary of State has just tempered those expectations. According to Rex Tillerson, the embassy move will take at least another 3 years, meaning it's unlikely to happen until after 2020. That's why President Trump, despite his decision, has gone ahead and signed the waiver that officially delays the physical move for another 6 months. Tillerson says the United States will need the next several years, if not longer, to develop plans for the new embassy, get congressional approval for money, and then actually build the new embassy in Jerusalem. Quote, "It's not going to be anything that happens right away," Tillerson's confirmed, adding that the move is, quote, "probably no earlier than 3 years out, and that's pretty ambitious," end quote. For the time being, United States documents and passports will also not be changed to reflect the shift in Jerusalem policy. Israel has just sentenced a Jewish extremist to 4 years in prison for setting a church in northern Israel on fire. 22-year-old Inon Ruveni has also been ordered to pay $14,000 in compensation to the Galilee Church, which is known as the Church of the Multiplication of Loaves and Fishes. Ruveni attacked the holy site back in July of 2015, a place where Christians believe Jesus fed 5,000 people in a miracle of the 5 loaves and 2 fish. Even though the complex was almost entirely burnt down, the church finally reopened to Christian pilgrims last February, following $1 million worth of renovation work. At the time of the attack, Ruveni had been living at the Baladim outpost in the West Bank, a community known as the home to so-called Hilltop Youth, a group of young people known for resisting I.D.F. evacuations in the settlements and carrying out attacks against Palestinians. Ruveni's attorney says his client intends to appeal this ruling. It looks like the Israeli army is attempting to appease religious soldiers who are against serving in co-ed military units. The I.D.F's Joint Service Ordinance obliges career soldiers to serve in mixed-gender combat units, whether or not they're religious. It doesn't apply to conscripts who can opt out of co-ed service prior to enlistment, however. Well, I.D.F. Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot has approved several updates to that ordinance. Now, if a religious officer is assigned to service in a mixed-gender combat unit, he's allowed to submit a request for re-examination of his placement before it takes effect. This order will not affect ultra-Orthodox soldiers who already enjoy special conditions and separations throughout their service. And despite the easing of the Joint Service Ordinance, the I.D.F. says that during war or emergencies, the new order will not apply. Despite the changes to the ordinance, according to the I.D.F. spokesman, quote, "The I.D.F. is the people's army and it must allow all those people who serve in it to serve regardless of their religion, faith, or gender," end quote. After conducting a major long-term undercover investigation, the Israeli police's Major Crimes Unit has just arrested over 20 suspects for allegedly defrauding the Israeli Defense Ministry out of over 100,000 shekels, or nearly $28 million. The suspects, which include Defense Ministry officials and employees from 2 different technology firms, are believed to have been involved in a long-running scheme where they would charge the Ministry of Defense for work that was only carried out in part, if at all. Giltech and Eurocom, the 2 telecommunication companies involved in the case, were hired multiple times to complete expensive military telecommunication contracts. Instead, the enormous sums of money were embezzled. Names and rank of people arrested, as well as more specific details about the alleged crimes, have not yet been disclosed to the public.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.